Welcome to Are You Decent, a Wandering Lantern Productions podcast that talks about what we do in the arts and what you should be doing in the arts.
Oh, yes.
I don't want to be too presumptuous, but...
No, but we're right. No.
I've got some ideas.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've done this for a long amount of time. And so we have opinions. And rather than, I guess, inflicting them upon our family and friends,
which we do.
We're also
and let me tell you another thing.
The voice memos that go back and forth between us.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The rest of our house is also subjected to. My kids call it like the Christina podcast hour. Sure. I'm like in my kitchen doing chores and we're just like the arts these days, rah, 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 which is honestly,
I think it's fair.
Not much different than how it's been, but it does feel like it's evolving.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
I hope so.
I hope so. It feels different than it did 20 years ago when I first started.
Oh yeah,
for sure. Better.
Right.
And more honest, maybe more truthful, more out in the open. People are more willing to kind of say things and, and that's good, I think, when people are talking more about stuff. Anyway,
let's talk about what we do.
I guess so.
So here's the story. I don't know if you know that. Maybe you know the full story.
I think I know bits and pieces, but I've never heard the whole shebang.
I'm gonna give you the Cliff's Notes because nobody's got the time. Nobody's got the time or the attention span for this. So in 2016, we did a burlesque.
Oh yeah, and I was there for that.
And you were there for Labyrinth.
Oddly, because I was just doing like a warm up, a warm up act,
Yeah. And that was 2016. That was in, I think it was like July or August. It was hot as balls. That's all I remember is dying. And so it was in a little cafe and it sat 50 people and it sold out 3 times, which is, but not maybe the biggest deal when it's 50 people. But like,
it is.
Like at that level, at the time, at the level we were, it was a big deal. And
that's like a first production, 50, that's 150 people.
150 people.
Paid you money. To do art. That is a big deal.
It's and I think what I learned from it was like people love this movie. Well, I knew I loved it, Labyrinth. And I was like, I just remember standing outside after the show going, this would be a fun shadow cast. And then I just sat on it literally 9 months. And I knew I had to have the right venue for it, which was going to be like, you need a screen, you need a stage, you need wings, you need dressing rooms, all this stuff. And I remember actively Googling and searching for theaters and like, can we do this here? And like, nobody responded to me at all, which is like
typical. That's so typical. Look, if you're not ready for people to just ignore you, please do not get into the arts.
Best case scenario in the arts is you don't hear back ever.
Yes. You don't hear back ever.
Yeah. So that's fine.
90% of the time. And then 8% of the time you hear no. And then 2% of the time you hear yes.
Yes.
So that's about the breakdown.
But for me, like I've Pavloved myself. The time that I don't hear back, it never happened to me.
And it's not technically a no. It's not technically a no. So it doesn't go in the no category. No. You can go, I bet you they're just so busy.
I go, they never got the email.
They just never, they probably have some intern
they never got
checking this. You know what? Do that because it's none of your business, honestly, what happened to the email after you sent it if they never.
It doesn't exist.
That's past you.
That is a thought process that separates like the men from the boys in this field is just being like, you can't hurt my feelings.
Oh my God, please. Yes.
You really can't.
You have to get used to the idea that people are going to say no to you and it's going to be for the most honestly ridiculous reasons. And they will say those ridiculous reasons out loud to you as if it's fully justified. And you just go, okay, and go to the next thing, And I think the people who, when they say like you have to handle it, it's the people who take all of those things personally that you will not be able to hold longevity.
Yeah.
Because who can handle getting hit over the head with a baseball bat 5,000 times? Like no. I'm ducking every time. You got to duck the baseball bat.
Exactly. And so I was.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was fine. And then in March, I remember this clearly, 2017. So my daughter, who would have been 10 at the time, loved Harry Potter, as most people do. We're not going to comment on its creator.
Boo, hiss tomato.
But like, We get it.
Before we've all got Stockholm syndrome about it. It's okay. We're millennials,
Yeah, we've been through
it
enough.
happened. It was a traumatic time, and then they put this media on us. We have a trauma bond with it. Just buy the books used, okay?
Yeah, totally. So we went to see it, and well, it was at this theater, and I had been there once before. I had taken my daughter to her first movie ever at this theater, and she was maybe 4. And I was like, well, let's go. And she said, okay, sure. So we went to the Redford Theater. And I sat down. Now, like I said, I'd been there once before, but now my eyes were different because there was like 6
A goal. There
years.
was a
there was something
potential.
there. Something I had been looking for. And I sat down and I went, oh my God, this is the place. And during intermission, it's a long ass movie, right? So she wanted to like leave halfway through. I was like, that's fine, we'll leave. I went home. I was like, love you. Let's get you in bed. I came right up here to my bedroom. I got on my laptop. I said, let me get an email. I sent that email off. I have this crazy idea. What if we shadowcast a labyrinth? And then I explained what a shadowcast was and my credentials. And I maybe padded it a bit.
I think often though, when you're thinking of things as padding, it's just talking about them blatantly, honestly. But we're kind of taught to like, because if people be like, oh, well, I went and did this thing, but it wasn't for as long as other people, or it wasn't I didn't have as much success at it. Yeah. But a lot of people didn't do it at all.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? So you got to be like, yeah, no, it's cool that the attempt is something in anything. And then if you get even one step beyond that, that's not a pad. You get that gold star,
No, for sure. And then I didn't lie. I just said like, we're award-winning costumers. And we had just won Comic-Con cosplay contest.
That's like, the truth.
It's truth, but I did maybe big it up. I was like, we are that girl. Anyway, so it only took like maybe a week, and I got an email back from a guy named Steve, and he was like, this sounds really fun. Let's do it. That was in April of 2017. I went and told everybody, and I was like, oh my God, we can do Labyrinth as a shadow cast. I made it happen. And they were in. And then it happened in November of 2017. And that's how we got started. So it was one night only. I never intended for it to be 8 years later. I did not ever think that was like, it wasn't in my plans. I was like, let's do this. Because when you're an artist, you just throw darts.
You're like, next thing. But I think it speaks so much to, there's an important life lesson in that, right? In that whole story. One is, it's okay to wait for the right opportunity to come.
Yeah.
And when you have a good idea, you don't need to rush it, because it's more important to curate the proper space for it. Feel comfortable waiting.
Yeah.
And then wait, what was this thing you were just talking about? I forgot the second thing. That'll happen again. Hold on, I'll remember it like later. Anyway. But yeah, the patience thing, and not thinking about everything having what's the next step, and then after that, and then after that, and then after that.
Yeah.
It's good to have a holistic viewpoint, yes, as an artist. Look at the big picture of, kind of the goal of your endeavors, right? But if you are constantly obsessed with, while you're doing one thing, thinking about what is this going to lead to, you never get a moment to enjoy it. And let me tell you, no one is going to tell you to enjoy it. You have to steal those moments.
Yeah.
And if you're constantly, well, and then the next, and how will I then, leverage this into the next thing? Yes. Like, we do have to be having those hustling thoughts, but if that becomes the core of your like artistic career, then you will burn yourself totally out. So
totally.
And both of those things are inherent to, Wandering Lantern from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Patience for the right opportunity.
Right.
And just letting each thing exist before you're fully like, trying to hustle into the next one.
Yeah.
Giving each thing a little breath,
It's roots and wings, right?
Yes.
And then it's also the idea that it's like a kid who's going into college and they think they know everything they want to do, may not be open to the fact that they may learn that that's not what makes them happy.
Yes.
So when you get into a project, you're like, well, I didn't think XYZ was going to happen, but if I had prescribed the future already, I may not be open to these things. And I think that's really a lesson I've learned.
You get too attached to the path,
instead
of the destination. And there's a lot of ways to get to places. So yes, it's like that goal of like it's good to have like how you want your artistic career to feel. and like what you would like it to bring into your life. Having those pictures be long term and have longevity is good. Trying to fit in every spot in between and go, that's exactly how I'm going to get there, is not. You're using them as like the core values on which you gauge decisions that will come up. But you kind of have to have that baseline, or you'll get carried away, or trying to rush into things, or doing things that don't resonate and don't fit, or just saying yes to stuff. You know what I mean? For
nothing.
For nothing.
Literally nothing.
Literally nothing. For actually money, because you probably had to drive there or something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And your time and everything. So if you have those core values in place, then it lets that decision making be holistic, while you're not obsessing from moment to moment to moment. And as someone who's done that now for, see how long, 17, 20, or wait, 23, 43. Let me add more. How long is that? A long time. 25 years?
26, yeah.
Okay. It's worked out great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It has really worked out great. It was hard at first, because especially when you're first starting out, there's such this idea of like, say yes to everything in, I think, every artistic field. And if you are going, I'm not going to say yes to everything, a lot of other people who are very like kind of enmeshed with like the traditional way of kind of doing performing arts, of sending out your resume and lining up for auditions and doing like working 15 jobs while you're trying to go down to Pearl Studios in New York. There's kind of like this one vision of how it's supposed to be, or you're going out to LA and you're getting your headshots done and you're doing all of that, and it takes out a huge segment of what it could be to people. And when you try to go away from that, I promise you that people will go, and you've got to have a level of discernment to know when you need to listen to them and when you've got to be like, I don't know if you know everything.
They don't.
Spoiler. Yeah. As much as you know right now is as much as you need to know to like be a theater teacher. There's literally no one testing it. So.
Yeah, no, we're raw dogging it. Okay, so November 2017 came. We had no budget. Everybody kind of pooled money to make it happen, which is a big ask for Labyrinth. But because we had done the burlesque show, there were at least some costumes available and whatever. And long story short, it was a one-night only engagement. And I think it sold about 1,000 tickets in a 1,500 seat theater, right?
That's a lot of tickets.
So we go from 150 to 1,000. And I remember this guy, Steve, coming on stage before, like, I think it was like maybe tech the night before we opened. And we were having like a little discussion on the stage, in the round, like you do before a show.
Yeah.
And he goes, so when is the next show? And I was like, is there a next show? And he was like, I'm hoping. Well, that kind of thing doesn't land in your lap very often when you're in theater. So
I think it's also important to say that if you don't know about the Redford Theater, it is literally like a beautiful historic theater in Detroit with this organ in it. And it was saved through a lot of sort of the economic hardship of the city because of that organ being inside of it. It is a jewel in the neighborhood. And it is literally what every theater kid dreams of being a part of and having. And it's like our home theater. Like, it's amazing. You walk, it's got like stars on the ceiling and all these amazing paintings. So if you don't come to see our shows, at least go check out the Redford and learn about it, because it is just like an incredible thing that should not exist.
No, it shouldn't.
It shouldn't. It should have been torn down and demolished. It should have fallen apart. But through the love of artists, they have kept it alive. So it's really cool.
And it's great. And it's coming up on its 100-year anniversary in 3 years, I think. Yeah. Which I know we're starting to talk, because I'm in the board now. So we're starting to talk about what's that going to look like, for the theater. But in an age where these historic places are being torn down and closing, the Redford's actually thriving because people want that.
Yeah.
And they're very smart about it. But anyway, so 2017, we do the show. It was great. The next year we do Princess Bride, and we up our game. We get a little bit better at things. And again, no money. No money. We made it work. Luckily, there's like Princess Bride costuming like online, like it exists because it's a big movie.
Right.
And I cannot
spirit
remember
Halloweenable.
how many, exactly, how many people came to that show. But that was the first time we expanded to the Friday night, Saturday matinee, Saturday night, which is something that we're still doing.
Yeah.
It was enough.
That's a doozy.
I think I was able to pay everybody from Labyrinth. It was like $300 a person.
Right.
Because I just split it up because everyone put their own money in.
Exactly right.
I didn't take anything extra. I still don't for the most part, but that's not a flex, but we're working on it. Yeah, that's not good, but we'll get into that. It's tough. And I'll explain why it's all hard, but I think Princess Bride doubled it. It was like $500 or $600 per person because we had more shows.
Yep.
And then they went, great. What's next? And I said, we talked about it as a group. It wasn't my idea. I cannot take credit for it. Somebody said, let's do Hocus Pocus. And I was like, oh, that would be great. And then that was when we were born. Because we, I'm sorry, COVID really messed up my lungs. That was the show that took us from, this is really fun, to this is real. And we sold out 4 shows, sold out. I told you it was a 1,500 seat theater. We sold out. Everybody made like $1,000 on that show. And there was still a lot of money left over because we went to Salem with the show. So there were big costs involved for me to get everybody and like put people up and whatever. And then COVID hit.
Womp womp.
Womp womp. So
after I got officially
right after you got your first role.
My first role, yeah.
Because we were going to do The Lost Boys, and that didn't happen. And I think it probably was good it didn't happen because I don't think it would have done very well because it's just not as prolific.
Right. It could do good in a smaller theater.
I think it could, or like the Music Box in Chicago could maybe handle it.
Yeah, the Music Box.
But I just, for a 3-show engagement, and it was going to be like so hard. Like, how do you make these people fly? And like,
what are we
doing?
Roller skating lessons. Mm-hmm. Dan and I were taking roller skating lessons.
Yes.
So that we could do the vampire fights on stage.
Yeah.
Which was super fun.
Right.
But it just shows you the level of creativity that was going to like be required.
Yeah.
It's really cool. That's one of the fun things though about the Shadowcast is trying to figure out how you do things that typically rely on film tricks, you know what I mean? But we've got to do them
like how do we make this practical right now?
Or silly enough that they don't care that it doesn't.
There's a formula.
It either needs to be accurate or ridiculous. And
the sweet spot is when you do both.
Both, yeah.
At a good ratio in a show, they will leave laughing and going, but wait a minute. How did they do that?
How do they do that though? Yeah, exactly.
And that's the sweet spot, and I'm giving you the formula because I'm not afraid of.
There it is.
I'm not a gatekeeper. The way that somebody else made Shadowcast, and I've been asked over the years dozens of times, like, how do you make this work? I'm me and I have the team I have, and that's why it's successful. That's all I can say.
People need to understand that though, like in the arts, I think there's conversations that happen all the time about copying and you know what I'm saying, like doing the same thing. And I need everyone to really understand that no one can do anything in the arts exactly like you do it.
Right.
And it's always going to be what you bring to it that makes it different. So, even if you're doing like this place is doing this show and this place is doing that show, those 2 shows are totally different.
Wildly different.
And do you want to spend your time complaining about the other place doing it too, or doing art?
Yeah.
I'd rather do art. So I don't worry too much about what other people have going on. And even if they're doing the same thing as me, I don't know. It's inconsequential. It's none of my business. Unless I'm going to go see it.
It's like, am I not doing the same thing as the original Rocky Horror Shadowcast?
Exactly.
I am. I'm just a different take on
There's
it. There's
only so many human experiences.
Right.
Good luck.
It is very weird when people, and I've had people take that stuff personally.
Yeah.
And I don't like that energy because I think that it takes away from the focus of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it's also like, it's like playing whack-a-mole. It's inevitable that someone's going to see your success and be like, ooh, let me take a stab.
I could try that.
Well, go take a stab. And the first time you don't get paid, you're going to be like, oh. Like it doesn't work for everybody. And if it does, great. Maybe we're like very similar and we should help each other.
What like an overnight success is made in 10 years. And people only see that thing that happens at the end.
Yeah.
They don't see the 9 years and 11 months and 20 days.
Yeah.
They see those last 10 days. That's because that's the moment you step forward into the light. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people will look at that moment and try to just,
I want that.
I want that moment. And they don't understand that there's like a foundation being built. But like I'm saying, if you don't worry about that, like I do burlesque, and that, I'm telling you, people love to be like, that was my idea. I did that first.
Yeah.
I was this. I'm the first one that ever. And I promise you, if you look back in the history of the art form, you are not. and the other thing is, it's okay. It's okay that like 20 people have champagne glass acts, because they're all going to do them differently. Yes, we're all going to be in a splash zone, but I'm going to get splashed differently. I, as a human being, can appreciate that individuality. And I think a lot of people have a lot more capacity for appreciating individuality than artists. Insecurity often gives credit for.
And that's what it is. I just think it's like, it's so hard as an artist to make a buck, to live your life, to get the gig, to get in with a place that's good and safe feeling. If you feel threatened in any way, you just run up against it. And it's like, I think you're picking the wrong battle.
Right. Yeah. And I will say, nothing in the arts that I've ever felt like I needed to force, or that was morally against like my code of ethics or my core values as an artist, has ever worked out.
No.
Isn't that funny? It's never paid me well. It's never supported me emotionally. It's never forwarded me as an artist. A lot of those places have benefited from my labor, though, by promising those things. But the places that I actually get fulfillment from, like if you're actually like, I want to do an art career and I want to feel fulfilled, or I want to be financially supported, then I promise you that those things that are disingenuous to you will not be the things that make it happen. Because if you cannot be authentic and open and free and expansive, you are not yourself as an artist.
Right.
And that's the it factor.
It's
you being, when they're like, oh, they've got that it factor. It's the not caring about what other people think, knowing who you are, being authentic to it, and living it, not just like saying it, but actually living it in like the decisions and choices that you make, even when it's hard, when it's hard to say no, when someone's like, oh, well, the exposure is really, and you don't know that that's really, what good is that to
That
me?
is pretty much fake.
Yeah, that's not a
not
real thing.
Always. There's a little gray area there, but it's pretty much fake.
There are times where I will work for free. But,
yeah, oh sure.
But it's very specific, and I will say that I don't ever work for free with the intention of forwarding my career.
Right.
I'm never working for free thinking this is going to forward my artistic career. Normally when I'm working for free, it's because someone is creating something. They're in the early phases of it, and I think what they're creating is of value. And I know that they wouldn't be able to afford me artistically, but I support what they're doing, and I want that thing to do better.
Yeah.
Yes, I will work for free.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to work for free for someone who is creating something that is not authentic to me, not what I want to see in the art world, not building towards any of the goals that I have.
Yeah.
You are going to have to pay me, and probably pay me more than I would typically charge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's the thing about authenticity is like, when you there's no blueprint for being an artist, and so it becomes very easy to say, I need to go to the cattle calls, and maybe you do, that's fine, I get it. Like, there's no prescribed way forward,
right?
So it feels really scary to then say, now I'm going to go, there's this other like deviated path called being an artist for a living, and I'm going to take even a side path called being myself. That shit is scary.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been living in, and I'm sure what you've been living in. And it's like, but the mortgage, but like the other stuff, I would just be pit against 100 other women my age with my look. And sometimes it works out. Sometimes some commercial success will come to me, but I could never rely on that as much as I could rely on my own things that I'm cultivating.
Yes.
But not everybody's a producer, and I get that too.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
Yeah. So yeah, it is like, do you want? But you can also do like, you can find people. You can like, you exist, right?
Yeah.
And there are other people like you that exist in the art world who care about artists and like want them to be, compensated for their work and want them to be respected. And then if you're an artist and you're not turning away opportunities that aren't aligned with that, how will you ever find the ones that are?
Yeah.
Because you could take on an opportunity that looks really good on paper. Like I'm sure a lot of people would be like, oh, an off-Broadway tour for 8 months looks like a really good thing on paper that you'd love to put on your resume. The reality of it is working 7 days a week, pretty much 24/7. I mean, because when you're not on stage, you're traveling to the place, or you're doing your checks in the morning, or you're warming up, or
Interviews.
yeah,
and, all this
exactly.
stuff.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Or you're also auditioning for the next thing, right? That's like the typical route. And there are other routes in that. Like for some people, that's the route. For some people, that route really energizes them and lights them up.
Yeah, that's great.
And I love that for them. But I think that for like every 1,000 actors that like line up for like that cattle call process, there's 100 that really love that. And I wish instead of us, like the other 900 of us that don't love that,
yeah,
we can feel a little more comfortable in finding something else, especially now, because you have the internet.
Right.
You really can. Like I create content and no one tells me like what I can and can't post, you know what I mean? And you get to make a community around yourself with that even opportunity. There's so much more you can do beyond it. And I just wish everyone would stop and question, like, am I doing this because I was told this is the path? Or am I doing it because I'm feeling motivated? I'm feeling, excited about it. And this is what I want to do. And it's what I've dreamed of. You know what I mean? And, my opinion is that that's the better option personally.
Yeah. Authenticity always, right? Some people are meant to be on Broadway.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people are meant to do murder mysteries.
Absolutely.
Because that's what they're really good at.
I love doing murder mysteries. Hire us for murder mysteries.
Yeah, they're great. So 2019 was the last year. The third show was the last year that I ever had to ask anybody to spend their own money on a show, which is a huge accomplishment because it just did so well.
Yeah.
And we kind of became a name. At the time, the Goblin King Players, we have since switched, because when I made that name, I had no idea what we would become.
It was just for Labyrinth.
I was like, this is a one-off. It was like a pop-up theater name. You know what I'm saying? And it stuck, and that was great. But there were people who were interested, who were just regular people who were like, I want a murder mystery. I want Christmas carolers. I want a mime, who had no connection to this thing. And it just seemed, I think, off-putting. I would see people like stumble over the name sometimes, not all the time.
You do, if you take it out of the context of Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Goblin King Players. Like I would think that it's like some LARPing group, or
it doesn't. That's the thing.
Like, are you guys like a D&D clan, or what's the
it's
deal?
Like it didn't speak anymore, and
there
were other things involved in that, but I'm going to focus on the silver lining, which is that it helped. Like the name change helped, so now it's Wandering Lantern Productions, and now I just see more people, and I've gotten like different kind of gig requests.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we get it now. But anyway, so the third year was the last year anyone had to pay for anything, and the first time it was like, this is all profit now. But doing those big shadow casts, like if you're getting any wise ideas, I just want to tell you, Disney's going to take half, man. Right off the top, right?
So you have to pay for rights for the movie.
You have to pay for rights to the movie,
and different places have different amounts that they want.
Disney takes half.
Disney wants a lot.
Sony takes 35%.
Yeah.
And then the theater's like, cool. And of that, we're going to take this half. Right. So like partnerships, it sounds so like, you can't get it twisted. It sounds so glorious. And I'm not saying it's not.
It is.
But there are so many expenses. Now imagine going, okay, we're going to put Hocus Pocus on stage. We're going to put Beetlejuice on stage. How much money does it cost to get replicas and find the costuming and get your wigs made and figure out how the hell is this going to happen? That show was so
We should
expensive.
just like show pictures of Beetlejuice.
I will insert
pictures here so that you can see.
And it was
it's
so
insane.
fun, and so many people came, and it was great. I didn't make any extra money. I just made what everybody. I think the first time we did Hocus Pocus was the only time I ever made a little bit extra, because it existed.
Right.
But if I did that every time, I'd have to seriously cut into everybody's checks.
Into the other performers.
And I'm sort of like, the way that I look at it as a business owner is, I just haven't figured it out yet fully. I'm not trying to punish myself, but if I can't retain good people, that's a problem. And people work really hard on these shows.
Yeah.
I know that I work harder because I'm working longer. I'm working all year. And it's not like I don't value my own work. But to me, it's like if you have a plan B to fall back on, you'll fall back on it. So I'm thinking, I just have to find a way. There's got to be another way to make this work that is not hurting the other people.
Yeah.
So that's
it's a form of investment into your business. You're just
Yes.
you are investing with your like labor and time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you believe in it and you want to build it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And you can see that it has potential, right? You're not just running into a brick wall where
No.
because people will do that artistically, like, you know, talking about the name change. You'll bump up against moments as an artist where really your career is asking you to take a left-hand turn.
Yeah.
And so many people will just keep running into that wall. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid to like, but you've got to, like, it's okay to like invest too.
Yeah.
You know, just,
I kind of
gotta have
figured,
discernment
like,
about it.
They say like a restaurant doesn't make money for 5 years or something.
Exactly.
I've always looked at it like that. But then because of
COVID though, right in the middle of the 5 years.
Yeah, no, horrific. But that's the thing too, is like, I don't have overhead. It's not my theater.
Yeah.
So whatever little I can keep in our bank account or however it works, like that business is always going to be fine because you can't take my money away. I started with $0 and I can continue with the $0.
$0 in a dream.
And I don't have $0 anymore, but nor do we have a ton because it's very expensive to do replica. It's very expensive.
Right. It's not like you're jetting off to the Bahamas every time we finish a show or something like that, right?
Are you kidding?
Just sleeping for like 3 weeks.
No, I'm pretty much making what everyone else is making.
Yeah.
But then because that's how we got to be known is by doing those big shows and having like thousands of people come to them. And now we do a lot of gig work. Yes. That's where I make my money.
Right. Yeah.
Those individual little things.
The Christmas caroling, the
Christmas
murder
caroling.
mystery. So diversified artistic portfolio is useful.
Exactly.
If you
so
want to be
I just know now there's a good chance that the big shows I may not get paid fully, but I'm working toward, I got to fix that. You know?
Right. And in the meantime, the notoriety that gets,
it is for
filters
something.
over into the more gig work that we do. And that is financially, that you do see more of a financial.
I see much, and also just like, I'm learning, like, this is it's a hard field.
Yeah.
Tours help because then you make more and there's more opportunity to make more, which we are doing with our next show, which is Ghostbusters. A little tour plug. Is not really a word.
It is a tour. It's a Starburst tour.
It's an additional stop.
Yes. If you want more, though, you could contact us. And let us know.
For sure you can.
If you want Ghostbusters Shadowcast to come to your town in October, but not the first 2 weekends. First and third. Second or fourth, though.
The fourth, I'm in Massachusetts.
Second, though.
But the second.
Ignore the fourth. The second, though, you could book us.
Yeah. But it's crazy because by doing those big shows, we got so much notoriety that we have gone. Where have we've gone to Canada, and I don't want to say Ohio, like that's a big thing. I'm just saying, like,
it is a big thing.
All these different states. I have gotten on many, many planes to go do my work.
Yes.
And that's huge to me.
How cool. Well, you have to think back. And I think as an artist, right, as you go through, there's no one stopping and going, good work. You know what I mean? Like, like when you have like a regular job, you know, you at least get promotions, you know, or you get like an annual review where they sit you down, they go, you're doing great. You get 5 cents more an hour and you hate it. But you know what I mean? Like you at least have that kind of input. Right. And what I do a lot is I try to think back instead of thinking about like that accomplishment from me now. I think about like, would the 17-year-old version of me that was like, walking onto my college campus for my very first day of theater school. If I listed that out on paper, would that person think, wow, that's really cool?
Yeah.
And 99.999% of the time, I can't think of one time that she didn't think it was cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you look at it from that perspective, it's like, Ohio, you're like, well, that's only one state over for us. But a lot of people never get to travel out of state doing their art. So you've got to celebrate those things. Like
I definitely do. You know? They're a big deal to me because I have fought so hard for everything. Because I'm 42. I've been doing this since I did my first show when I was 11.
Right.
And I have never stopped trying to build a career in the arts. So every time someone calls me, I am straight up giddy. And if you know me, and if you are responsive to my giddiness, if you understand where it's coming from, I will I will be vulnerable and tell you how excited I am.
Yes.
I don't do that with everybody because not everybody can match that energy or take it the way that I intend it to be given.
Yeah.
You know, but like if you're in the business, you know that it's a big
If you're
deal.
in the business and you feel good about where you are in the business, then other people's success will make you happy as well.
Yeah. And run from the people who not only can't be happy for you,
yes,
can't be joyful. And I'm not saying everything has to be like, let's pop the champagne. I'm saying that there's a difference between
I am saying that. I will absolutely say that there is no good reason to have a person in your life that when you are celebrating and you are excited, they cannot be their level of excitement. It's just like, why would you want that? Right? People who can't be excited for your excitement, there's a reason. And do you want to spend time trying to figure that out? I don't. And I can't name a single time, 43, where one of those people that couldn't be happy for me in the moment, couldn't meet that energy, then turned out to be a really close friend.
Yeah.
Or a helpful business connection. Please.
For sure.
I will say it. If people can't be excited alongside you, it's no personal hate to them or anything. I think it's good to be around people who are going to resonate with your outness, like your unmaskness, your openness, your vulnerability. And especially as an artist, I think
we need that.
You need it.
Because it's so isolating
anyway. My God, yeah.
And then if you can't build community on top of it, but people are all kinds of not ready to face their own shit. But you know, they'll look at it. Why are you posting? Why are you saying that? Oh my God, yeah, look at you. And it's like, I'm not not bragging. I'm sharing the wins. And as many times as I felt people couldn't see that about me, I have felt the other, like I get in my inboxes all the time, people saying, please keep speaking up because you're making me think I can do big things.
It's always much more like voices going, yes, supportive.
Yeah.
Than they are coming against you. The problem is, I think, in our culture, and I could get into all the different psychological reasons, we've put a lot of shame around the idea of being wrong. So if someone steps up and says, you're not doing it right, or we give too much weight to it because we've been taught that that's something that should give us shame. I think it shouldn't give us shame. I think that if you're wrong, you should take accountability, you should learn and grow from it. But that shame is really kind of, it's meant to teach you a lesson. So you need shame if you can't learn the lesson from oh, I just don't like making people feel that way, then sure, maybe you need an element of shame. But for most people, they want to be good. You know what I mean? And so when they make mistakes, they go, oh, they don't go, well, I made that mistake and I stand by it. And the people who do that, they have something else, going on that you can just go, okay, cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway.
And then I think too, like we as humans were wired to find the problem. And so that's why like we ruminate at night and everything like that. But it's also really hard when you're doing a very atypical career that's already really hard, that there's already no blueprint for, and somebody comes in.
It's also built on the idea that people from outside are going to criticize you while you do it.
And then they do.
And then they do.
And then that's why you focus there. Because you're like, wait a minute. Right. And so it's
your whole career is built on shifting into people pleasing, the casting director, people pleasing, the director, people pleasing. Well, the traditional approach, I should say.
Yeah.
Is built on that. So like if you go to a theater school, that's what they're going to teach you. Yes.
Yeah. So like, no, are you decent? Like, but people, I think that people don't work that out.
Yeah. I wish in theater school, if I could like wave a magic wand, as useful as like learning things like, oh, stage left, stage right, or blah, blah, blah. I wish it was more about like unpacking those things a little bit in a safe, trauma-informed environment. Like I wish theater education was more trauma-informed. So that way, by the time people are getting out into a career where you have to be vulnerable while people critique everything about you, and then also dive deep into your emotions of things that you've experienced to find truth kernels of like, that you at least started some unpacking and exploration. Like every BFA should just come with weekly therapy sessions. That should be one of your classes. It's 3 hours a week, right? A typical like college credit. 3 hours.
That'd be great. 3 hours.
Therapy.
We'd all be crying.
Oh my God. But imagine how much, because a lot of people don't deal with any of that until they're out in their career, and then they're sabotaging their career with it.
Yeah,
instead,
because they don't talk about.
Yeah,
It's like just talked about like, yeah, well, you can go pursue Broadway or movies. And it just so happens that there's an entire country between LA and New York City, and there's work there, and there are people who work in it as performers.
When I went to so I went to theater school. Christina did not. Christina learned in the trenches. Okay.
Sure. I would argue the theater school is the trenches as well.
A different trench.
Yeah, it's a different trench.
It's a different trench. But when I went to theater school, my theater school would do like a showcase, right? And they would send a group of kids to LA to do a showcase, and a group of kids to New York to do a showcase, and during your senior year, and you had to be picked. And in news surprising no one, I was not picked. It was the early 2000s. I was not a size 2. Okay. You know, like this is real. You know what I mean? Like you have to think about like the sort of look of media at the time. I was not teeny tiny. I refused to get contacts. I had piercings. I looked different. I was not going to get into the showcase. Right. And in the fall, we had a director come in from Chicago, and she directed like a show. And I conned my way into assistant directing by just begging. I had no reason I should, but you know, I just asked her if I could, because I thought it was cool that she lived in a city. I had never been to a city before, you know. And she told me, hey, like in Chicago, like there's all these off theaters, and you can literally just like do a show.
Yeah.
For like $50. You pay them on an off night, like on a Tuesday, you pay them 50. Again, this is back in the early 2000s, a long time ago. You can still do stuff like that in Chicago, but it's probably going to run you like 100 on a Tuesday or something. And you know, you can just do it on like the set that's there, and you can do whatever show you want. And I was like, that's where I'm going. So I started telling all of them, like, I'm going to Chicago. And let me tell you, every professor there was like, why?
As if they don't have a budding theater scene. Like
there's a huge theater scene in Chicago. It is like, and it's
where the Shakespeare, whatever.
And a lot of the people who end up in LA and New York doing great, guess what? They started there. They learned things there, and then they go to bigger. Okay. Anyway, but I don't know this. They're just like, oh no, you don't, you know, that's not, you need to go to either New York or LA. Well, you guys aren't taking me to showcase. And I didn't want to go to New York because I didn't want to have to hustle. And I was not going to stop eating. So I was not going to LA in 2004. Okay. So I was like, well, I'm going to do it anyway. And I managed to con like 5 of my friends, convince them that we should do this. Right.
Yeah.
We move out there. Not 3 years later, that same college, now when they do showcases, they do one in New York, they do one in LA, and they do one in Chicago.
Wow.
And they love to be like, oh, we have so many alumni in that city. And when I started trying, okay, so this is me telling you, and Chicago was great. Like I learned so much being there. I had so many great experiences. If I had listened to them, I would have been miserable in LA or New York. I would have burnt 100% out. I would have quit. I would have moved home. Like it would not have worked for me.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't work for everybody.
It doesn't. Yeah.
Why does Broadway have to be I mean, I love Broadway.
Absolutely. But I will come see all.
It does have its own issues.
Yes.
And you have now like 7,000 people vying for 8 roles. I would much rather be like, let me just swim out a little bit further and set up this thing over here.
Yes.
Because people will come.
Let me come to your Christmas dinner and pretend to be an art kid.
Speaking of murder mysteries.
Yeah, like the murder mysteries and stuff. Like that stuff is just as fun as long as you feel good about the idea of like, if you're not too caught up in, because some people get caught up in like the, I don't know, like the sparkle of certain things, right?
Yeah.
Like being on Broadway, like that's a big sparkly thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's great.
But if you can also have a goal for your art instead of getting on Broadway, the goal for your art can be that it sustains me, that it, you know, brings me solace, that it makes me feel like I'm growing as a person, that it brings joy to my life. Like joy is a goal, you know, and can be a goal of it, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of times too, we talk about the money aspect, because as weird as it sounds, it's not that like you can't do things without getting paid or whatever. But a lot of times the places that are basically what I would call using wage theft to succeed, meaning theaters that are set up and they're not really paying their artists, but they have an overhead of like a theater space and marketing and all of this other stuff, right? And it's always like, well, there's kind of this conversation always of like, well, we got to keep the doors open, and so we can only pay you this much in this conversation, or maybe we can pay you if we make enough. Maybe there's a split, or like all of those kinds of conversations. Those things don't lead to those goals of joy. Those things are when people are like, I can't, I have tech week. I've never said I can't, I have tech week since I've started working here.
Yeah.
I can. It's fine.
Yeah.
I have tech week, but
yeah, it's such a rich, interesting conversation that we have again and again and have like for years now. And we'll continue to have, because I don't see people bargaining for their worth or even attempting to see it. And I have a problem with that. The first two shows, I already said it. The first two shows we did, everyone pitched in, but everybody knew what the story was. I was completely transparent, and I'm still completely transparent, completely honest about what all that looks like. They wanted, fine, yeah, let's try it. Because sometimes you were talking about, hey, I'm going to do something for free because I want to see where it can go. I want to help it succeed. And thank goodness for those people, because they helped make it what it is today. I could never have done that alone. And I will always value each one of those people for that. Thank you so much. And then once I started getting money, it was just a split. Here's what we got. You get this, you get this. And we still work like that in the theater. Because going from being able to pay people to being able to guarantee payment is another jump. And I'm trying to make it,
Right.
But we're at least at the point now where you can depend on, okay, it's probably going to be this much.
Yeah.
Because it's always in the same range. And so people feel pretty comfortable, I think.
Yes.
But when we do gig work, it's going to be, I'm going to pay you this much money, and I've already got the Airbnb or the hotel, and here's how we're going to get there. And you don't have to pay for anything. You just have to come work. I think that's where we should be headed.
Yes.
But then there are people, and I'm not going to name names. I could, but it's way too many names.
It's too many names.
There are like people who do, let's just say another famous Shadowcast movie. Okay, listen, here's the deal. If you want to do it for free, do it for free. But when people are making a bunch of money off of your back, the question is, where is that going? Is it going to you giving up every evening in October, every weekend? Are you seeing something? What's the return on that? It's your work. And the problem is, artists, I think, they see like theater as playtime. It's a chance to be loved on by the audience. It's a chance to just kiki and haha with my friends. And if we valued it more as work, like actual work, then we would understand we deserve to be paid. Because would you ever go to your job and be like, oh, I'll come in every weekend for free?
Look, if you were working at like a retail store and that place was packed every weekend, right, for an entire month, and you worked every weekend that entire month, and then you had the owner of that store come to you and say, good work, everybody. Bye. You'd be like, I'm not working holidays anymore. You know what I mean? You wouldn't want to do it. But in theater, we don't go, okay, well, we did a really great job. So if the setup is not financially viable for the actors, and the producer doesn't then go, I need to reassess, maybe find a different location, find a different setup, find a new marketing technique or something, then you need to question what their intent is. Because why would a producer not want performers to make money?
Right.
That to me doesn't make, the only benefit is wage theft. Like that to me is the only benefit.
And we hate it when corporations do it, but it really does trickle down.
Yes.
But we see being on stage is such a glitzy, like that's the payment. Okay, well, occasionally you do stuff for free and that is a payment. Fine. Like there's lots of ways to get paid, but that's kind of ridiculous. And the problem is when people when we say, well, what are you getting paid for that? And they're like, oh God, I'm so burnt out. I'm not getting anything.
Yes.
And then have you had the conversation? And the answer is no. That's what shocks me. Because if a producer were to say, it costs X amount to rent this place, the prop backs cost X amount here, and they were being transparent in some way, maybe you could have an understanding.
Yes.
Like, no one's even broaching the topic. It's a foregone conclusion that your labor is free. That's the problem I have, because we don't take ourselves seriously.
Right. Yes. And the thing is, I think a lot of it comes down to, and this is society, We live in, but we live in a capitalistic society that pushes productivity, and productivity is the purpose. And as an artist, you have to get comfortable with the idea that you are an artist 24/7, 365. When you're doing no gigs, when you're doing 100 gigs, you are still an artist. But a lot of us only feel like artists when we are walking on stage, when we are in the act of doing our art, because we have been taught that the only time it matters is when you have something productive.
Have a gig.
You got to have a gig. You got to
Yeah.
have a thing. Please, you're an artist right now, sitting in your jammies, listening to this. You're an artist on the toilet while you scroll TikTok. You are an artist at your worst and at your best, and you do not need some producer to convince you of that. You do not need an audience member to let you know. You can just let yourself know on a daily basis that that is your purpose. And when you get really comfortable in that, I think that like desire, that almost self-destructive desire to get on stage, you will feel it. You will feel that monster just take a step back. Because that's not really you, and that's not really your art, and it's not doing anything, and it's not producing anything. That is this inner part of you that is clamoring for relevance, is concerned that the only way you can be relevant is if you're seen, if you're in front. You know what? Get a TikTok. That's what I do with that. You know what I'm saying? Like there's other ways to do it, and then you can still show up in those physical spaces asking for what you deserve, which is either going to be knowledge or money. That's the way I look at it.
Sure.
I either need to be clued in on like what's going on a little bit so that I know what the deal is and why it's set up this way, or pay me. Right. And I won't ask any questions.
Yeah. If you're not making a lot of money, but let's say you're doing Rocky Horror and it's sold out every weekend, but there's like, oh God, it's really expensive. Do you have enough to just like throw people some gas money at least?
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting everybody needs to go make a full like living wage every time they do a single gig, and it's got to be like to X standards. Like when I do a commercial, it pays a lot. I'm not suggesting that, but like something,
especially if your producer is saying, wow, like if what they are communicating to you is great season, everybody, incredible.
Yeah.
We sold out. The theater wants to bring us back. We're going to be doing it again next year. Let's brainstorm ideas. Let's think about this. Or, oh, someone came and saw it was so great, and now we're going to do it. So that's when you've got to start being like, well, okay.
Hang on a minute.
Like, why, you know, like it's okay to say like, this is a point to step up and say like, I am curious why in the development of this model, as we're seeing success, that financial sustainability for the performers is not a priority in the business model. That should be a priority in the business model. And if it's not, you have to question why. And the answer is because it's cheap.
Yeah.
It's cheap. If people will work for free, it saves you a lot of money. You know what I mean? It really, really does. Like your human, you know, equity or whatever, like, because how many people you got to have on stage? Like 6, you know, to 12, you know, props you can use again, year after year after year too, with a little slap, a little acrylic paint on it, you know, especially if you're doing the same thing over and over again. So
especially for something like Rocky Horror, it's just plentiful. It's out
there.
Right,
exactly. So then you just have to ask, and you're not being rude, and you're not being awful, and you're not ruining your chances of getting hired places, and you're not destroying your artistic career.
The producers who run those kinds of shows have no influence on the professionals, just so you know. They're not the same. They're not the Venn diagram. It's wholly on a different page. Don't worry about it.
Even.
And I'm not saying they can't be good people, but I'm just saying like
they're not Venn diagrams. It's like pancakes on 2 separate plates.
Yeah.
It's just like one's an Eggo and then the other one's a pancake.
Yeah.
And
I work really hard to be very transparent, even if not everyone always feels that way. But that's not the truth. The truth is I work really hard to be transparent.
I will say, like, I've worked a lot of different places and you are the most transparent.
Well, I figure that's how you keep people, like, especially if you're like, hey, I don't know what I'm going to pay you this time. It's looking like this. And then I'll explain, because even people who come in like, we have auditions this Sunday.
Yeah.
Those people might, now I did have to guarantee them a little something because I'm posting auditions. I guaranteed them what I expect everyone else to make though. based on 8 years of experience. This should all pan out.
Yes.
Or I said, here's your guarantee, or more depending on the equal cut.
How much we saw,
right? So like it could, but this is the bare minimum. All right, great, cool. But I will tell them, you might see 3,000 people come in here, but you do have to understand the 35% off the top. And then the theater is going to take half. And then like, well, what did it take me to produce the show? Not my work, but like just the money it took out of our bank account, the investment. I got to pay that back. Then we can talk about splitting it. But those are the conversations that just need to happen. Just be honest, like that's what it looks like.
And people like get their feelings hurt when they don't have those conversations or don't understand that those things exist, and then they assume what's going on.
Oh my God, she must be making so much money. Look
So
at all
much.
these people. Listen, babe.
Yeah.
There has been one show that I didn't even take money for my part in acting in it. And then people kept wanting to do it again and again. The reason I didn't take money is because it wasn't very well attended.
Right.
I just didn't even take $1, and neither did my husband.
Right.
Because we were like, okay, learning experience.
Learning, yeah, it happens.
We gave it to everybody else. Well, we want to do the show again. I didn't want to say I didn't make any money doing this at all, because I don't want to throw that in someone's faces. That's like my choice.
Like that they hold that like, oh, feel bad or something.
Yeah, that was it's not, that's why I never mentioned it. But I do shit like that as a producer, not infrequently, because that's what it takes sometimes. Yep. It's just when I say, I don't think it's going to work, just take me at my word, because
please believe me.
Please believe me. Please believe me. You have to understand that if like the person in charge isn't taken care of, everything will fall under it.
Yeah.
Right. Because they'll be like, okay, well, that's not working anymore. And I can't live like this. And like, I actually also have bills.
And you can't be a producer totally burnt out because you're just like throwing only your human equity into it all the time. And then nothing else. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Which is why like last year we took a break from the big shows, because I needed to rethink the whole thing. How am I going to do this? How am I going to make a living wage doing this? I have to take care of myself, take a step back and do something different.
And it was fun.
And it was a great opportunity, but it really gave me time. And now we come into this show going, okay, we're going to have rehearsals are going to start an hour later, and we're not going to do every scene. And these little changes have changed so much for me.
Yeah.
And I know they will for,
and
it
will still be impactful for the audience. It will still be fun time. And if anything, there's so many things that I feel like over like the idea of just doing selected scenes. There's been moments where it's like, oh, I wish we could do something there, but it's just too quick. It's too quick to move from that to the other. And I love that we'll be able to kind of pick scenes and then do bigger stuff within the scene, because you actually have transition time. And do they need to see us walk down the street and talk? If it means instead we can, bring something giant into the theater.
Right.
Small spoiler.
Which, we will.
We will.
We've got
it's
plans.
worth it. You know what I mean? So
but that time off really allowed me, and probably not just me, to go, what do I want to do?
Because when you're in it, you're still in it. You know what I mean? You're thinking about the next thing. And I think you probably wouldn't have, if we had just gone into the next one, even the idea of like, well, maybe we just do selected scenes. I don't know if that idea would have popped out, because you're still in it. And so you're kind of like, well, I'm rowing the boat.
You never stop.
I'm rowing the boat. Just going to keep rowing the boat. How I've always rowed the boat,
But that doesn't work.
Right.
And like, you got to stop. That's what we were talking about. Like, you can think what's going to happen next, but you have to really take stock of not only opportunities that are coming in that you didn't expect, which happen all the time, but then how you feel about what's happening.
Yes.
And it's interesting to see when somebody like me takes that step back, how people respond to it.
Oh.
A lot of people don't like that, because they can't know everything you're thinking anymore.
People love to feel entitled to other people's energy.
Right.
And that's okay for them.
It's not
like, my business.
It's not personal.
Yeah, exactly.
Not is, but it's not personal. But man, it's been so helpful. This next show is going to be the best show.
Yeah.
Because we had time. We all had time.
It does feel like that. Like, I'm so jazzed about Ghostbusters. We had like, if you guys like watching of our social stuff, we did like a movie day where we like watched the movie and we sampled all of the cool drinks that we're having for like our Legend screening in June. And it was just like, man, I feel so ready to do this. You know what I mean? After like the little break. And it was like, we did Screen Theater in August, and it was more kind of traditional acting, if you will. And it's like old-timey radio show. It also felt good for me as an actor to use my voice on stage. You know what I mean?
It was really fun.
It was just nice. It was a nice change to have that switch, and it felt good to know, because we've got this nice, relationship with the Redford and everything, that if we switch something up, they are supportive of it, and now we're going to come back in with something that's going to do really good for them too.
Oh,
it's so nice, like, to have that partnership.
Yeah, it's so important to be trusted.
Yes.
Just to be, and that's all I'm looking for in all my business relationships. Not that I'm immune to feedback. I actually ask probably ad nauseum, what do you think? But that I do know what I'm doing. Like, I've been doing this for a long time, and in any given room that I'm in, I'm probably the person who knows the most about what I'm doing, right? And if I'm not, that's great, because I would love to learn something. But like, I didn't get here for nothing.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm so excited about Ghostbusters. And then you develop like partnerships, and I could do this. And I just, for a while, didn't even know if I wanted to do it anymore, because I was so burnt out.
Yeah.
So burnt out. And now I'm so excited. That's why I can't stop talking about Ghostbusters, because I'm actually happy.
You feel the energy to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Ready to wrap it up then?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So then we will catch you next time when we ask the all-important question.
Are you decent? Bye, everyone.
Bye.